Well, greetings, my scattered sisters and brothers in the Lord. Trust you know that the Lord is with you throughout this day, and that whatever your day holds, the Lord is enough for you. So back to John. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory of the one and only from the Father, full of grace and truth. That's the verse we love to dwell on, or at least I love to dwell on. But the next verse is one that we often just pass right on over. At least I pass right on over it. It goes back to John. Let me go ahead and just read it for you real quick. John testifies concerning him. He cries out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me has surpassed me, because he was before me." Now, I'm not sure what prompted John the Evangelist to go from the profound verse of 114 to remembering John's testimony. But John's testimony is kind of a riddle. The one who comes after me is before me. He has surpassed me because he was before me. And just thinking about that, I'm not sure that John the Baptist actually knew that Jesus was before him in terms of Jesus being the Son of God. I think he knew that he was the Messiah. I think he recognized who he was as the Messiah. But I'm not sure that as John would have spoken those words, he would have been thinking about Jesus as the second person of the Trinity, through whom everything came into being. And in that sense, Jesus was before him. I suspect it's a little bit different, at least from the angle of John the Baptist, that he had been passed by Jesus, that John started out his ministry preparing people to receive the Messiah, and then along came Jesus, and Jesus' ministry surpassed John's ministry. And when questioned about why Jesus' ministry surpassed John's ministry, I think John probably said something along the lines of, it was always meant to be, that from the get-go, Jesus was going to surpass him, because all along Jesus was the appointed one, the Messiah. So that's what I've been thinking about this morning, getting past. And that's not always a fun thing, to have somebody pass you. Uh, Honestly, I don't enjoy being passed when I'm on the freeway. And I don't enjoy being passed when I'm trying to get down the basketball court. And almost inevitably, anytime I feel somebody trying to pass me, my instincts are to speed up so that they can't pass me, even if I don't have the ability to speed up. And it's that way in ministry as well, that one of the hardest things to deal with is to see somebody passing you in ministry, whether their church is outgrowing yours, whether they're having kind of more success than you are, whether they're getting greater feedback than you are, is just hard to be passed. And it's even harder to be passed when you're in ministry and you're trying to serve the Lord, and yet it seems like somebody else is getting ahead of you in serving the Lord. And I think that's something that we have to deal with no matter where we're at, and just kind of recognize that there are going to be times when people surpass us in ministry, whether they have a bigger youth group, whether they have a bigger Bible study, whether they have more people that they encourage than what I encourage. It's just going to happen that there are people who are going to surpass us in ministry, and we have to come to the place where we recognize that's okay, and that we can rejoice in that. And I really think that if anybody is going to bear fruit in ministry, that ultimately that fruit comes from God, that fruit is appointed by God. And so we could say very much the same thing that John says about Jesus, that yes, those who come after us have surpassed us, because it was kind of always meant to be that way, that God has ordained them to have such and such a ministry. And it's kind of in God's call, or kind of God's prerogative, as to who has what ministry. And so we can't get discouraged or frustrated, or quit simply because somebody else's ministry has surpassed ours. So that's one thing. I think about with John's words. But even more than that, at some point, like John, we have to get passed by Jesus. That at some point we have to recognize that really Jesus is the one who surpasses all, that Jesus is the one who surpasses us, um, because he's from the first God's anointed one, God's appointed one, if you will. And we struggle there at times because we get so wrapped up in our own ministries, our own successes in ministry, that it's almost like the ministry becomes about our ministry rather than the ministry actually being about Jesus. And so Jesus has to surpass us in our ministries. Otherwise, we're really not pointing to Jesus. We're just pointing to ourselves as witnesses to Jesus. And that's really just to point to ourselves, period. And so it's kind of been a fresh reminder that in everything we do, it really has to be about Jesus. Everything we do can't be about what we do. We need to get surpassed by Jesus and recognize that he is the preeminent one, the one who is always before us. So, wherever you're scattered as you go forth this day, just remember that you need to get passed by Jesus. That everything that you do needs to be about pointing to him rather than pointing to yourself about what a great witness you are. It's a word for me. I trust it's a word for you. God bless and have a great day.